Hey everyone, I'm sorry this is a little bit late, but we're going to go ahead and get through this right now. Here is the back half of the second part of the Odyssey. If you remember correctly, Odysseus has just steered his people through Charybdis and Scylla, and he just made out of this little whirlpool and this monster with all these heads coming down off the cliffside. He got him through. Remember, he had to navigate through the sirens as well because he stuffed wax in his men's ears, and then he also had himself bound up to the boat. He got stuck there, and then they sailed through, and then they had to get through Scylla and Charybdis, and they made it. And so now we're on to that next phase, and let's use this reading today to understand a little bit more about Odysseus. Remember, this is really about wits, bravery, arrogance, how we make it through the travels of our life, and which is why we're going to do this blog post to go with it. So I apologize if this gets a little bit boring or a little bit long, but nonetheless, that's all you got to do right now. So just listen to me read, and we'll go forward from there. All right, here we go. Then we were coasting. The noble island of the god, where grazed those cattle with wide brows, and bounteous flocks of Helios, lord of noon, who rides high heaven. From the black ship, far still at sea, I heard the lowing of the cattle winding home and sheep bleating, and heard too in my heart the words of blind Tiresias of Thebes and Circe of Aeneas. Both forbade me the island of the world's delight, the sun. So I spoke out in gloom to my companions. Shipmates, grieving and weary though you are, listen. I had forewarning from Tiresias and Circe too. Both told me I must shun the island of the sun, the world's delight. Nothing but fatal trouble shall we find here. Pull away, then, and put the land astern. That strained them to the breaking point, and cursing Eurylochus cried out in bitterness, Are you flesh and blood, Odysseus, to endure more than a man can? Do you ever tire? God, look at you. Iron is what you're made of. Here we all are, half dead with weariness, falling asleep over the oars, and you say, no landing? No firm island earth where we could make a quiet supper? No, pull out to sea, you say, with night upon us, just as before, but wandering now and lost. Sudden storms can rise at night and swamp ships without a trace. Where is your shelter if some still gale blows up from south or west, the winds that break up shipping every time? When seamen flout the Lord God's will, I say do as the hour demands and go ashore before black night comes down. We'll make our supper alongside and at dawn put out to sea. Now when the rest said aye to this, I saw the power of destiny devising ill. Sharply I answered without hesitation, Eurylochus, they are with you to a man. I am alone, outmatched. Let this whole company swear me a great oath. Any herd of cattle or flock of sheep here found shall go unharmed. No one shall slaughter one of wantonness, ram or heifer. All shall be content with what the goddess Circe put aboard. They fell at once to swearing as I ordered, and when the round of oaths had ceased, we found a half-moon bay to beach and moor the ship in. With a fresh spring nearby, all hands ashore went about skillfully getting up a meal. Then, after thirst and hunger, those besiegers were turned away. They mourned for their companions, plucked from the ship by Scylla, and devoured, and sleep came soft upon them as they mourned. All right, so I'm going to pause here, kind of go backwards a little bit. I want to talk about what I just read. What had happened was Odysseus was like, dude, stay away from this Helios island. And why did he say that? Let me give you 1 second. Why did he say that? You're right. He said that because Circe and the other guy was like, don't do it. What's going to happen is one of your men is going to kill one of his cows, and that's going to irritate the heck out of Helios. And when that happens, you're about to get it, man. That dude is going to come after you, and it's going to be hard sailing home. So Odysseus is like, no, just keep on going, man. Just keep on going. I don't want to mess around with this. But his right-hand man, Eurylochus, is like, dude, I'm tired. I want to sleep. Come on, man. Pull ashore. We'll sleep on the beach. We'll look at the stars. And you want to go out to the middle of the sea, probably get beat up by a bunch of, here comes a big old tidal wave, and I'm going to get knocked down by it. And that's what you want to do. That's some nonsense. So that's what Eurylochus says. And all of the men are behind Eurylochus saying like, all right, man. Yeah, come on, Odysseus. I'm tired, dude. I'm really tired. And so finally he's like, all right, swear to me you won't touch one of these cows. Swear to me you won't touch one of these cows. We have to be content with what's already on the ship. You touch one of these cows, it's bad news. What do you think is going to happen? I agree with you. Pay attention, we're going to keep on moving. In the small hours of the third watch, when stars that shone out in the first dusk of evening had gone down to their setting, a giant wind blew from heaven, and clouds, driven by Zeus, shrouded land and sea in a night of storm. So, just as dawn with fingertips of rose touched the windy world, we dragged our ship to cover in a grotto, a sea cave, where nymphs had chairs of rock and sanded floors. I mustered all the crew and said, "Old shipmates, our stores are in the ship's hold, food and drink. The cattle here are not for our provision, or we pay dearly for it. Fierce the god is who cherishes these heifers and these sheep, Helios, and no man avoids his eye." To this my fighters nodded. Yes, but now we had a month of onshore gales, blowing day in, day out, south winds or south by east. Pause here for a second. How long are they on that shore? How long do they get stuck there for gales of wind coming in and keeping their boat stuck on the beach? If you said a month, you're right. So now they're probably getting a little bit hungry. Imagine a month of not eating as much as you want to eat, and there's some fresh cows hanging out over there. Let's see what happens. As long as bread and good red wine remained to keep the men up and appease their craving, they would not touch the cattle. But in the end, when all the barley in the ship was gone, hunger drove them to scour the wild shore with angling hooks for fishes and seafowl. Whatever fell into their hands, and lean days wore their bellies thin. The storms continued. So one day I withdrew to the interior to pray the gods in solitude for hope that one might show me some way of salvation. Slipping away, I struck across the island to a sheltered spot out of the driving gale. I washed my hands there and made supplication to the gods who own Olympus and all the gods, but they, for answer, only closed my eyes under slow drops of sleep. So what just happened? Odysseus sneaks away from the boat, and he's like, I need to wash my hands. I need to pray to the gods and say, please, please help me here. Please help me here. But the gods kind of ignored him, and they went, boop, and he fell asleep. And that dude is out. So now his men are all alone, hungry for a month, now just kind of thinking to themselves, I need to eat some food now. Now on the shore, Eurylochus made his insidious plea. Comrades, he said, you've gone through everything. Listen to what I say. All deaths are hateful to us, mortal wretches, but famine is the most pitiful, the worst end that a man can come to. Will you fight it? Come, we'll cut out the noblest of these cattle for sacrifice to the gods who own the sky. And once at home in the old country of Ithaca, if ever that day comes, we'll build a costly temple and adorn it with every beauty for the Lord of Noon. But if he flares up over his heifers lost, wishing our ship destroyed, and if the gods make cause with him, why, then I say, better open your lungs to a big sea once for all than waste to skin and bones on a lonely island. Thus Eurylochus and they murmured, aye, trooping away at once to round up heifers. Now, that day tranquil cattle with broad brows were grazing near, and soon the men drew up around their chosen beasts in ceremony. They plucked the leaves that shone on a tall oak, having no barley meal, to strew the victims, performed the prayers and ritual, knifed the kine, and flayed each carcass, cutting thigh bones free to wrap in double folds of fat. These offerings with strips of meat were laid upon the fire. Then, as they had no wine, they made libation with clear spring water, broiling the entrails first. And when the bones were burnt and tripes shared, they spitted the carved meat. Just then my slumber left me in a rush, my eyes open, and I went down the seaward path. No sooner had I caught sight of our black hole than savory odors of burnt fat eddied around me. Grief took hold of me, and I cried aloud, oh, Father Zeus and gods in bliss forever! You made me sleep away this day of mischief. Oh, cruel drowsing in the evil hour! Here they sat, and a great work they contrived. Lampetia in her own long gown, meanwhile, had borne swift word to the overlord of Noon. They have killed your kine. And the Lord Helios burst into angry speech amid the immortals. O Father Zeus, the gods in bliss forever, punish Odysseus' men. So overweening now they have killed my peaceful kine, my joy at morning when I climbed the sky of stars, and evening when I bore westward from heaven. Restitution or penalty they shall pay, and pay in full, or I go down forever to light the dead men in the underworld. Then Zeus, who drives the storm cloud, made reply, peace, Helios. Shine on among the gods, shine over mortals in the fields of grain. Let me throw down one white-hot bolt and make splinters of their ship in the wine-dark sea. Calypso later told me of this exchange, and she declared that Hermes had told her, well, when I reached the sea cave in the ship, I faced each man and had it out. But where could any remedy be found? There was none. The silken beeves of Helios were dead. The gods, moreover, made queer signs appear. Cowhides began to crawl, and beef both raw and roasted low like kine upon the spits. Now 6 full days my gallant crew could feast upon the prime beef they had marked for slaughter. From Helios's herd, and Zeus, the son of Cronus, added one fine morning. All the gales had ceased, blown out, and with an offshore breeze. We launched again, stepping the mast and sail, to make for the open sea. Astern of us the island coastline faded, and no land showed anywhere, but only sea and heaven. When Zeus Cronion piled a thunderhead above the ship, while gloom spread on the ocean, we held our course but briefly. Then the squall struck, whining from the west, with gale force, breaking both forestays, and the mast came toppling aft along the ship's length, so the running rigging showered into the bilge. On the after deck, the mast had hit the steersman and slant below the bashing the skull in, knocking him overside as the brave soul fled the body like a diver. With crack on crack of thunder, Zeus let fly a bolt against the ship, a direct hit, so that she bucked in reeking fumes of sulfur, and all the men were flung into the sea. They came up round the wreck, bobbing a while like petrels on the waves. No more seafaring homeward for these, no sweet day of return. The god had turned his face from them. All right, so just to pause here before we finish on this last bit, just to kind of explain a couple of the things that have happened. Odysseus pass out. His men decide that, hey, we're going to kill some cows. Because Eurylochus, he actually makes a pretty good point. He's like, bro, are we going to stay on this island and starve? That sounds horrible. How about, and hear me out now, how about I go kill some of these cows? We eat like kings. And then we offer one to the gods. And maybe they say, hey, it's all good, man. Just take it. You're all good. So they do. They kill the cow and they offer it up to the gods. But at that point in time, nothing good is happening. At which point in time, Odysseus comes to, notices that they've done this, and he's mad. Like, what the heck, dude? I told you. But by the time he notices this, they have that lady running up to Helios, and she's like, bro, they just killed some of your cows. And Helios is like, they better not. They better not. And so he pleads to the gods, and he talks to Zeus, and he's just like, hey, I need restitution. Someone needs to pay for this. They either die, spend the rest of their life trying to get home, or I'm coming down and nothing, or you might as well remove me from Olympus because I'm not having this. It's going to be dark for the rest of the world. And Zeus like, man, be easy, dude. Be easy. So then he's like, I got this. With one lightning bolt, I'm going to wreck their entire ship. You good? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. So they trick him into thinking, hey, the sun comes up, everything's all good. They try to get out. Big storm comes. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Zeus zaps a lightning bolt. Bang, and they go down. So now that's kind of where they're at. Is figuring out the aftermath now of no boat because it just got obliterated by a lightning bolt. How do you get home now? And so now let's see what Odysseus plans on doing. I clambered fore and aft my hulk into a comber, split her, keel from ribs, and the big timber floated free. The mast, too, broke away. A backstay floated dangling from it. Stout rawhide rope, and I used this for lashing mast and keel together. These I straddled, riding the frightful storm. Nor had I yet seen the worst of it, for now the west wind dropped and a southeast gale came on, one more twist of the knife, taking me north again, straight for Charybdis. All that night I drifted, and in the sunrise, sure enough, I lay off Scylla Mountain and Charybdis deep. There, as the whirlpool drank the tide, a billow tossed me, and I sprang for the great fig tree, catching on like a bat under a bough. Nowhere had I to stand, no way of climbing the root and bole being far below and far above my head, and had the branches and their leaves massed overshadowing Charybdis' pool. But I clung grimly, thinking my mast and keel would come back to the surface when she spouted. And how long, with what desire I waited, till at the twilight hour when one who hears and judges pleas in the marketplace all day between contentious men goes home to supper. The long poles at last reared from the sea. Now I let go with hands and feet plunging straight into the foam beside the timbers, pulled astride and rowed hard with my hands to pass by Scylla. Never could I have passed her had not the Father of gods and men this time kept me from her eyes. Once through the strait 9 days I drifted in the open sea before I made shore, buoyed up by the gods. Upon Aegea Isle, the dangerous nymph Calypso lives and sings there, in her beauty, and she received me, loved me. Why tell the same tale that I told last night in the hall to you and your lady? Those adventures made a long evening, and I do not hold with tiresome repetition of a story. All right. He ends up getting out of there by just kind of being crafty, pulling the boats together, hanging out, and then he kind of dropped down, got on a boat, rowed past Island Charbitus one last time, and now he got called back to Calypso's island. So that's where we leave. We'll pick up on part 3 probably when you guys come back to school. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and we will go forward from there. All right. See ya.